Sunday. Rowley ended up getting grounded for that whole haunted house mess yesterday. He's not allowed to watch TV for a week, and he's not allowed to have me over at his house during that time. That last part really isn't fair, because that's punishing me, and I didn't even do anything wrong. And now, where am I supposed to play my video games? Anyway, I felt kind of bad for Rowley, so tonight I tried to make it up to him. I turned on one of Riley's favorite TV shows, and I did a play-by-play over the phone so he could kind of experience it that way. I did my best to keep up with what was going on the screen, but to be honest with you, I'm not sure if Riley was getting the full effect. Tuesday, well, Riley's grounding is finally over, and just in time for Halloween too. I went up to his house to check out his costume, and I have to admit, I'm a little jealous. Riley's mom got him this night costume that's way cooler than his costume from last year. His night outfit came with a helmet and a shield and a real sword and everything. I've never had a store-bought costume before. I still haven't figured out what I'm gonna go as tomorrow night, so I probably just throw something together at the last minute. I figure maybe I'll bring back the toilet paper mummy again, but I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow night, so that might not be the smartest choice. In the past few years, the grown-ups in my neighborhood have been getting cranky about my lame costumes, and I'm starting to think it's actually having an effect on the amount of candy I'm bringing in. But I don't really have time to put together a good costume because I'm in charge of planning out the best route for me and Rowley to take tomorrow night. This year I've come up with a plan that'll get us at least twice the candy we scored last year. Halloween. About an hour before we were supposed to start trick-or-treating, I still didn't have a costume. At that point, I was seriously thinking about going as a cowboy for the second year in a row. But then Mom knocked at my door and handed me a pirate suit costume with an eye patch and a hook and everything. Riley showed up around 6:30, wearing his night costume, but it didn't look anything like it looked yesterday. Riley's mom made all these safety improvements to it, and you couldn't even tell what he was supposed to be anymore. She cut out a big hole in the front of the helmet so he could see better, and covered him up in all the reflective tape. She made him wear his winter coat underneath everything, and she replaced his sword with a glow stick. I grabbed my pillowcase, and me and Riley started to head out, but Mom stopped us before we could get out the door. Man, I should have known there was a catch when Mom gave me that costume. I told Mom there was no way we were taking Manny with us because we were going to hit 152 houses in 3 hours. And plus, we were going to be on Snake Road, which is way too dangerous for a little kid like Manny. I should never have mentioned that last part, because the next thing I knew, Mom was telling Dad he had to go along with us to make sure we didn't step foot outside our neighborhood. Dad tried to scream out of it, but once Mom makes up her mind, there's no way you can change it. Before we even got out of our own driveway, we ran into our neighbor, Mr. Mitchell, and his kid, Jeremy. So of course they tagged along with us. Manny and Jeremy wouldn't trick-or-treat at any houses with spooky decorations on them, so that ruled out pretty much every house on our block. Dad and Mr. Mitchell started talking about football or something, and even timed one of them. And every time one of them wanted to make a point, they'd stop walking. So we were hitting only about 1 houses every 20 minutes. After a couple of hours, Dad and Mr. Mitchell took the little kids home. I was glad because that meant me and Rowley could take off. My pillowcase was almost empty, so I wanted to make up as much time as possible. A little while later, Rowley told me he needed a putty break. I told him, hold off for another 45 minutes. But by the time we got to my grandma's house, it was pretty clear that if I didn't let Rowley use the bathroom, it was gonna get messy. So I told Rowley if he wasn't back outside in 1 minute, I was gonna start helping myself to his handy. After that, we headed out on the road, but it was already 10:30, and I guess that's when most grown-ups decide Halloween's over. You can kind of tell because that's when they start coming to the door in their pajamas and giving you the evil eye. We decided to head home. We made up a lot of time after Dad and Manny left, so I was pretty satisfied with how much candy we took it. When we were halfway home, this pickup truck came rolling down the street with a bunch of high school kids in it. The kid in the back was holding a fire extinguisher, and when the truck passed by us, he opened the fire. I have to give Rowley credit because he blocked about 95% of the water with his shield, and if he hadn't done that, all of our candy would have gotten soaked. When the truck drove away, I yelled out something that I regret about 2 seconds later. The driver slammed on the brakes and he turned his truck around. Me and Rowley started running, but those guys were right on our heels. The only place I could think of that was safe was Grandma's house, so we cut through a couple backyards to get there. Grandma was in bed already, but I knew she keeps the key under the mat on her front porch. Once we got inside, I looked out the window to see if those guys had followed us, and sure enough, they did. I tried to trick them into leaving, but they won't budge. After a while, we realized that teenagers were going to wait us out, so we decided we were just gonna have to spend the night at Grandma's. That's when we started getting kooky, making monkey noises as a teenager and whatnot. Well, at least I was making monkey noises. Rowley was kind of making owl noises, but I guess it was the same general idea. I called Mom to tell her we were going to crash at Grandma's for the night, but Mom sounded really mad on the phone. She said it was a school night and that we had to get home right that instant, so that meant we were gonna have to make a run for it. I looked out on the window, and this time I didn't see the truck, but I knew those guys were hiding somewhere and we were just trying to draw us out. So we snuck out the back door, hopping over Grandma's fence, and ran all the way to Snake Road. I figured that our chances were better there because there aren't any streetlights. Snake Road is scary enough on its own without having a truckload or teenager hunting you down. Every time we saw a car coming, we drove into the bushes. It must have taken us a half an hour to go 100 yards. But believe it or not, we made it all the way home without getting caught. Neither one of us let our guard down until we got to my driveway. But right then, there was this awful scream, and we saw a big wave of water coming toward us. Man, I forgot all about that, and we totally paid the price for it. When me and Rowley got inside, we laid out all our candy on the kitchen table. The only thing we could salvage were a couple of mints that were wrapped in cellophane, and the toothbrushes Dr. Garrison gave us. I think the next Halloween I'll just stay home and munch some Butterfingers from the bowl Mom keeps on top of the refrigerator. November, Thursday. On the bus ride into school today, we passed by Grandma's house. It got rolled with toilet paper last night, which I guess was no big surprise. I do feel a little bad because it looks like it was gonna take a long time to clean up, but on the bright side, Grandma is retired, so she probably didn't have anything planned for today anyway. In third period, Mr. Underwood, our phys ed teacher, announced that the boys will be doing a wrestling until for the next 6 weeks. If there is one thing most boys in my school are into, it's professional wrestling, so Mr. Underwood might as well have set off a bomb. Lunch comes right after phys ed, and the cafeteria was a complete madhouse. I don't know what the school is thinking having a wrestling on unit, but I decided if I don't want to get twisted into a pretzel for the next month and a half, I'd better do my homework on this wrestling business. So I rented a couple of video games to learn some moves, and you know what? After a while, I was really starting to get the hang out of it. In fact, the other kids in my class had better look out, because if I keep this out, I could be a real threat. Then again, I better make sure I don't do too good. This kid named Preston Mott got named the athlete of the month for being the best player in the basketball unit. So they put his picture up in the hallway. It took people about 5 seconds to realize how P Mud sounded when you said it out loud. And after that, it was all over for Preston.